This is our subject this evening. Now, what was ancient man like? Was he smart? Was he intelligent? Was he a Neanderthal? You know, what was he? That's a good question. Now, that's what we're going to be looking into this evening. And I believe you are going to see that ancient man was very different from what many people would imagine. Now, we're going to begin by asking the question, did ancient man have electricity? And if he did, why did he have electricity? Now, let's go on. We begin. What about electricity? Now, notice here, we see in this picture, what archaeologists have found is they've found 6-inch clay pots with a copper cylinder. An iron rod was suspended down the center, and it was sealed with asphalt. Now, the rod showed that it was corroded by an acid solution. Now, they maybe think that it was something like some kind of a grape juice or some kind of acidic, maybe fruit juice. Now, the interesting thing is these are the basic compounds they would use in a battery. Now, when studying the clay jars, Dr. Koenig realized that this was no accidental configuration. Mechanically, they had all the components of a battery. So here we have these ancient objects, and they seem to have all the components of what a battery needs. Now, when they ended up testing them, they made models of these batteries. They looked at the old configuration, they made them, and then they plugged them up to a contraption, and they find out that these models produced 1.5 to 2 volts. Now you say, well, that's not all that much, but keep in mind a AA battery has 1.5 volts. So why would these ancient men be needing electricity? It's a good question, don't you think? Well, these ancient batteries found in Iraq all date from the Parthian period of the Persian occupation between 250 BC and 650 AD. However, electroplated objects which presuppose the use of some form of battery have been discovered in Iraq and in a Babylonian ruin dating back to 2000 BC. Now, electroplated objects were also found in Egypt by Auguste Mariette at 60 feet deep in the area of the Sphinx at Giza. These are described in the Grand Dictionary Universel du of 17th. I'll let you guess what that word is. Now, the generation of electrical current by the same means was not possible until the 1800s by our modern civilization. Now, think back that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they had the ability to make electricity. Now, if they had the ability to make it, they must have had a purpose for it. Was ancient man, dwarfed in his thinking, or was he extremely intelligent? We're going to go on. You say, well, these don't seem that highly technological, but we're going to go on and see that they could do things that possibly even man today cannot do. Now, what is this picture here? It's kind of a very interesting picture. What do we see? We see some Egyptians. They seem to have some cord coming through these, I don't know, the light. I'm not sure what these things are. Now, could it be that the ancient Egyptians had use for electricity? It might seem so. But now we move on and we ask the question, what about Stonehenge? You know, those giant rocks over there in Great Britain. Now, Stonehenge, they say, was built in 3 different stages. They say the first stage was built about 2000 BC. And then the second stage, a few hundred years after the first stage. And the third stage was between 1800 to 1700 BC. So they made this Stonehenge, these massive rocks, they put them in this configuration over a period of hundreds of years. Now, the first stage was 80 stones that were approximately 5 tons, and they were quarried 240 miles away from Stonehenge. So they had to move these 5-ton stones 240 miles. Now, just to give you an idea of what 5 tons is, an elephant is approximately 6 tons. So they're moving 200 elephant size, or at least the weight of an elephant, 200 rocks, the weight of nearly an elephant. And they're moving at 240 miles. Now, that's pretty intense. But we don't stop there. The third stage was 40 to 50 ton stones. And they were quarried 20 miles away. So they had to move 40 to 50 ton stones this distance to bring them all the way over to where they would build Stonehenge. Now, A boxcar on a train is approximately 60 tons. You say, well, we move those just fine. Yes, we do, but the reality is we move them on wheels on a train track. Now, they had to move these massive pieces of rock. Now, these are just dead weight, and they had to bring them 20 miles over to Stonehenge. Now, moving the boulders is just one of the problems. Elevating them into their assigned position may have been even more complex, for the entire observatory was built not on level ground, but on a sloped surface. Measurements show that the builders compensated for this tilt with an astonishing degree of accuracy. Now, interestingly enough, they chose this area, this designated area, to build Stonehenge, and it was not a flat surface, but yet somehow they compensated. They used rocks that were of the right size to compensate for this slope of the area of Stonehenge. Now, we go on and we read that Gerald Hawkins comments, such a precision of placement is, or was, astounding. To erect a boulder so that it was horizontally aligned was a task difficult enough. To sink that great block into the ground just so far enough and no further so that its tip was aligned vertically to an accuracy of inches was an achievement requiring another whole dimension of skill. So these men, they had amazing amount of skill back then in history to make Stonehenge. Now we read on. How, in fact, was it done? If after erection the stone had settled too deeply, it would have been out of alignment. And how could it have been lifted? Of course, if it had not settled far enough, its top could have been bashed away to lower it to a proper height. But the top was not bashed. Somehow, by technology unknown, the Stonehengers figured out beforehand the depth of the hole required to match up exactly as far as the survey shows, with this collection of variables. So they made sure you could say they made sure that no stone was unturned. They thought of everything before they put them into place, and they were put into place exactly how they needed to be. Now, he goes on to further explain that if he were to do this with modern builders, he would not be able to do so without the aid of yard tape, plumb lines, spirit levels, elevation levels, and blueprints showing the land contour and the particular design of each stone and its corresponding hole. So these weren't just ignorant fools pushing rocks into some configuration. These rocks even had a purpose, and with modern technology, you would need to really think things through before doing this. Now, we carry on, and it says 12 of the most significant Stonehenge alignments pointed with a mean accuracy of better than 1.5 degrees for the moon and less than 1 degree for the sun. So this was some kind of solar contraption. They made this to look at the sun or the moon or maybe various things in the sky, and it did it to an astounding degree of accuracy with these massive boulders. Now, this is a giant solar astronomical calendar. Now, they knew what they were doing. Obviously, they didn't just throw these rocks into this configuration. They had a purpose for this. Now, 600 other stone circles were found in Britain, dated between 2100 to 1500 BC. Now, highly qualified team of surveyors studied all these sites, and they found cup and ring markings found on the stones in all the sites were accurate to a few thousandths of an inch. The ovoids, ellipses, and circles were found to be based on the use of the Pythagorean triangles, a concept thought to have originated with the Greeks. Here they are used 1,500 years before Pythagoras entered history. So they're using things that we say, well, this comes from Pythagoras himself, and we see that long before he came on the scene, they seem to be using technology that would have to use this understanding. So maybe we have a misconception of the Pythagorean theorem. Maybe we're just off on this. Now, to go on, what about Callernish? Well, what is Callernish? Now, the Callernish is another kind of astronomical calendar that shows the moon wobble, as I understand, that occurs every 18 to 19 years. It's a stone computer to predict lunar eclipses. Before this site was investigated, the moon wobble was thought to not have been discovered until the 16th century. Now we go on, and with the fact that both Stonehenge and Callernish have the same unit of measurements, shows that these are related structures. Then the builders were aware of different phenomena observed at different locations. These differences could only have been understood without a knowledge of curvature and size of the earth. So they had an incredible mind, or incredible minds went into making these structures. They may look kind of crude being made out of stone, but you imagine they've lasted till now, so they must have had a purpose. Now, we go on. And what about Baalbek? Baalbek is a very interesting place. It's the Roman temple to the sun. Now, this is an amazing place. Now, we look back in history, and it was built on a Stone Age platform, massive, massive rocks here at Baalbek. Now, notice the stones here. This stone is 82 feet long. Can you imagine an 82-foot long stone that is, how many feet high? It's about 19 feet thick, or 15 feet thick. So this is a massive, massive stone. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a man there in the picture. He's kind of hard to see, but it just shows you the size of these if you look to the left of that massive boulder. Now, these are 15 feet thick, 82 feet long, and 12,000 to 15,000, not pounds, but tons. 1,200 to 1,500 tons each stone. These are massive, massive pieces of rock cut in shape and placed in this area. Now, notice a boxcar, as we've already discussed, is 60 tons. Now, notice this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 boxcars going into one of these rocks. Can you imagine 22 boxcars, and all of these things have to be moved by some ancient, men who can hardly think? Or was it that maybe they could think, and they could think very well? Something was very interesting about these people. They had the capability of moving these massive rocks, the same weight as 22 boxcars. Now, notice this stone. This is the stone of the south, and once again, I don't know if you can notice it, but there's a man there just to give you the size. Now, so this is just an absolute gigantic stone, and it weighs more than 2,000 tons. There's another picture of it. You can see that person standing on it, just to give you an idea of how absolutely massive these stones were. Now, once again, notice this car, and we take all of these boxcars. Now, this is an amazing thing. Over 30 boxcars in length. Or not in length, but in weight. I mean, this is an absolute massive, massive structure. Now, why would they have done this? Or how could they have done this? We have no clue. People say, well, maybe they stuck some trees under there and pushed it or pulled it with ropes. Now, remember, friends, this is no little rock. You don't just pull this thing very easy. These are 20,000 tons. Now, many of the cranes and lifting apparatuses in our world today cannot budge, let alone lift, the titanic blocks of Baalbek. Yet, there they are, cut and fitted together with such precision that a knife blade cannot be inserted between the blocks. So think of how accurate these men were who put these things into place. You can't even take a knife and slide it in between these stones. They knew what they were doing. They were very precise, very intelligent people of the past. Now, another picture there, another circle you can see there, just to get an idea of how big this is. Now, here are some people, and they are where? They're at Easter Island. Now, this is this island that has all of these strange faces and these strange heads. Now, how did they move these stone heads back then? How did they make these things and then move them into place? That's a good question. Now, originally, no trees or wood were on the island to make rope and poles. So they didn't have trees, they didn't have rope originally. So how were they able to pull these things or push them into position? That's a good question. The average 20-ton statues were carved on top of a crater and lowered 300 feet without leaving a mark. 20-ton statues moved across an island with no trees to move them into place. So how did they do it? It's a good question. Now, that's the size of about 3 elephants. So these are massive, massive stone structures. Now, to give you a picture of an idea of what it was like, there was a cliff. Some of them were put upon a cliff. Now, the cliff was at 600 feet above the sea level. And there were extreme strong winds, and somehow either they lowered it down off this ledge, and from what I understand, the wind is so powerful up there that it could nearly blow you off. And so they either had to lower it down, or there's a turbulent sea below. Maybe they took a ship and somehow brought it over there and then lifted it up into place. But any way you put it, this is an amazing feat that they did to put these stones in place. Now, how did they get the statues all over the island without damaging? They're all along the outer coast of the island. How did they get them in place without damaging them? It's a great question. Now, we're going to Tiwanaku. What is Tiwanaku? It is a massive structure up in Peru. Now, high in the Andes Mountains of Peru, on the picturesque shores of Lake Titicaca, stand the remains of a city of startling dimensions. Now we go on, and it says the Akapana, or Hill of Sacrifice, 167 feet high, with a base of 496 by 650 feet. The sides of the impressive structure were perfectly squared with the cardinal points of the compass. So these ancient men obviously had understanding of, north, south, east, and west. This massive structure, they put it in place to line up with the globe. Very, very interesting. Now, the reservoir system, they even had a reservoir system that once topped the Akapana, indicates the high degree of development of the builders. The hill still reveals evidence of the precision-designed, intricately cut stones, conduits, and overflow pipes, especially graded to ensure the proper flow of water. Similar pipes are found scattered throughout Tiwanaku complex, suggesting that the city had a complex drainage, water supply, or sewer system. Now, the Temple of the Sun, 10 feet high and 400 feet by 390 feet on a side, the platform was composed of blocks weighing 100 to 200 tons each. The wall blocks weighing 60 tons each. The steps of the stone stairway, 50 tons apiece. Now, here we have the massive structure that is called the Sun Gate. Now, this Sun Gate is other structural units composed of 200-ton blocks lie haphazardly. They lie just where they fell. So there they are. You see these massive 200-ton structures just lying where they dragged them. We're not probably exactly sure why they left them there. Now, it is amazing that the city exists. Just to give you a realization of where these stones are, the city exists 13,000 feet above sea level, and the air pressure at that altitude is only 8 pounds per square inch, as compared to 15 pounds per square inch at sea level. At this altitude, oxygen-poor air would sear the throat and nose, and even the slightest exertion may cause nausea, headaches, and sometimes even heart attacks. So how are they able to do this? At such a high altitude, they were up there, and they moved these stones, some of them 200 tons apiece. Now, it's difficult to be at such a high elevation. Now, just being up there and walking, you notice the higher you get up into the mountain, it gets harder to just even walk. You begin to notice, you go, and you feel like, where's all the air? There's just not as much. We see 8 pounds per square inch as opposed to 15 at sea level. So it's harder to breathe up there, and they're moving these massive stone structures all into place. Now, this is amazing. There was something very peculiar about these people. They must have been very intelligent people and also very tough, it seems. Yet somehow, under extreme hostile conditions that threatened life itself, the builders managed to maneuver hundreds of stone slabs weighing up to 200 tons each into their assigned places. Now, once again, we have all of these all of these elephants. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We have 30 elephants. Now imagine they have stones the weight of 30 elephants in this place. Amazing. that they were able to do this. They were able to move them into place at such a great way, in such harsh conditions, but yet still they could do it. These were very intelligent men. Ancient man was very different than what many people think today. Now, in rarefied air, the movement of massive objects over such great distances is not possible by muscular strength. But the stones were moved nevertheless and found resting places in Tiwanaku. Now, we move on. What about Saskatchewan? Now, this place is amazing. I had a friend, he was able to visit here. He was able to look at these rocks and get some pictures. And there was one rock in particular that we wanted him to get a picture of. He went and saw it, but his camera ran out of batteries while he was there. You know, and he said his friend got a hold of it. So we're hoping that we can get a picture of it in some time. Now, Saskatchewan is located in the Andes Mountains on the outskirts of an ancient capital of the Incas. So this is ancient, and you can see there in the picture, you see a man, just to give you an idea of the size of these rocks, massive rock fortress, and it rests on an artificially leveled mountain top at an altitude of 12,000 feet, so very high once again, and consists of 3 outer lines of gargantuan walls, 1,500 feet long and 54 feet wide, surrounding a paved area containing a stone structure believed to be a solar calendar. Once again, these people, they're interested in the stars. They see something there, and they say, well, we're going to make a calendar, some kind of stone structure that will give them an idea of what will maybe happen with the moon or the sun or various planets possibly. I'm not exactly sure. Now, the ruins also include a 50,000-gallon water reservoir, storage, cisterns, ramps, citadels, and underground chambers. So they were thinking things through. This had a direct purpose. Now, we go on to read, what is remarkable about it is the stonework. Here, extremely skilled stonemasons fit blocks weighing from 50 to 300 tons into intricate patterns. The interesting thing is the shapes of these rocks. Now, a block in one of the outer walls was, for example, had faces cut to perfectly fit with 12 outer blocks. Other blocks were cut with as many as 10, 12, and even 36 sides. Now think about this. These rocks aren't just, rolled into place. They are specifically put together with as many as 36 sides fitting together perfectly with the other rocks around them. Now, what I understand is that because of this strange structure, the way they made it, that this place is virtually earthquake-proof. So it's earthquake-proof because they're in such strange formation that they can't just topple. For some reason, it makes it very difficult for even, a great shaking to bring these rocks down. Now, yet, all the blocks were fit so tightly together that a mechanic's thickness gauge could not be inserted between them. And even more extraordinary is the fact that Saskatchewan complex was built without cement. Now, the quarries from which the stones were brought are located 20 miles away on the other side of a mountain range and a deep river gorge. So you're getting an idea. This is extremely hard. They had to get these rocks over to this place 20 miles away over a deep river gorge and bring them to 12,000 feet in elevation. Extremely difficult. Notice these men must have been extremely intelligent, very different than what you would think according to the theory of evolution, which is more of just a hypothesis that doesn't have anything to back it up. Now, within a few hundred yards of Saskatchewan was found a single stone. This stone is found turned upside down and is damaged in several places. It contains steps, platforms, holes, and other depressions. A masterpiece of precision, cutting and dressing. Clearly intended to become a part of the fortification. What is truly impossible about the block is that it is the size of a 5-story house. Keep that in your mind. And weighs an estimated 20,000 tons. We have no combination of machinery today that could dislodge such a weight, let alone move it to any distance. The fact that the builders of Saskatchewan could and did move this block shows their mastery of technology, which we have not yet attained. Now think about this. This stone, and just to give you background to this stone particularly is the stone that my friend, his name is Stefan, he made his way over there, and he saw the stone, but he forgot his camera. He says his friend got a picture of it. I hope we can get a hold of that when he finally gets a hold of it himself. But he saw this. Now think about this. This is a rock the size of a 5-story house, 20,000 tons. You say, Chad, that number really doesn't even register in my mind. 20,000 tons. What does that even mean? Notice, we're giving you some illustrations to help you understand. What is 20,000 tons? Now, taking the weight of a whale, it would be 133 whales. Taking the weight of a boxcar, it would be 333 boxcars. Taking the weight of an elephant, it would be 3,333 elephants. Taking the weight of a 180-pound man, it would be 222,222 men. Can you imagine? Now, right now I'm in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, which has, I think, about 180 to 200,000 people. Now, imagine taking all of those people together, every single one of them, putting them in a big, massive ball, and having a bunch of other people drag them somewhere. Now, I mean, you say, Chad, that's ridiculous. What a ridiculous illustration. You're exactly right. It sounds almost impossible. And how could an ancient man, or even a group of ancient men who are extremely ignorant, do such an amazing thing? Move a 20,000-ton rock. It's a good question. The reality is these men of yesteryear must have been extremely intelligent. Now, what about the pyramids? What about the Great Pyramids? You say, we know about the pyramids. They just move those rocks into place. You could move those on some trees. Well, there's more trouble to this issue than you hear, or they might tell you on the Discovery Channel. There's some serious problems with these pyramids. Notice, it is the largest building in the world by far, at 90 times the volume of the Sears Tower. 90 times. It equals the next 99 largest buildings combined. Now, this is not in height, mind you. This is in the entire size of this structure. It's larger than the next 99 largest buildings in the world. Now, it contains enough stone to build a 10-foot high brick wall all the way around Texas. Can you imagine that? Some of the stones weigh 70 tons. The top is 455 feet high. Can you imagine building a wall all the way around Texas, 10 feet tall, with just the stones that are found in the Great Pyramid? Now we move on. This was a pyramid to Pharaoh Cheops in the 3rd dynasty, whose reign was 22 years. So this pyramid needs to have been built, or must have been built, in the time frame of his reign. So it had to be built within his life. The theory is that it took 100,000 men to do it. Okay, let's just imagine that this is right. It took 100,000 men to do it within this lifetime of 22 years. Would it be possible? The problem is that it is composed of 2,300,000 blocks that would need to be carried in 22 years, or 7,300 days. That would mean 350 blocks a day, 226 blocks per hour for 12-hour working days. With 100,000 men today using modern equipment, we could not match this feat today. So get the picture. If we took men with the technology that we have today, not men rolling around with, rocks and with trees and rolling them across the ground with ropes. No. With the technology we have today, we could not do this feat that these men did making the Great Pyramid. Now, this is very interesting. This raises some serious questions. Now, we move on. There is also an additional problem. In Egypt, there's a 9-month growth cycle. That would mean that the workforce had to be at home working the fields, leaving only 3 months to work on the pyramid per year. That 100,000 men mentioned are only the moving force. Add to this roughly 100,000 stonemasons at the quarries, 100,000 builders at the building site itself, 100,000 architects, planners and supervisors, 250,000 women and children preparing meals and keeping shelters, and people policing the work and keeping order. So you are looking at 750,000 people making this one pyramid, which is 1/3 of the estimated population in Egypt at that time. So imagine taking 1/3 of the entire country of the entire country and bringing them together to work in this area. Now, this is unreasonable. Now, but this isn't the end of the problem. Excavations have found that there are only 4,000 workmen's huts there. There is no way that 100,000 laborers can fit into 4,000 huts. So the problem is, how can one explain the building of the Great Pyramid in 4 years' time by just 4,000 workers if only primitive methods were used, and that only during 3 months periods of time each year? Now, the Pyramid of Sneferu, which is built around the time of the same dynasty, which is 2/3 the volume of the Great Pyramid, so it's 2/3 the size of this pyramid, has a cornerstone revealing that it was laid the 21st year of Sneferu's reign. Half the way up the pyramid is another stone revealing that its date was the 22nd year of his reign, revealing that it only took 2 years to build a pyramid 2/3 the size of the Great Pyramid. So think about that. You have a pyramid 2/3 the size of the Great Pyramid, and it only took 2 years to make that pyramid, and it's 2/3 the size. So maybe you bump it up to 4 years. What if you even said 5 years to make the Great Pyramid? Now, we couldn't do it with modern technology in it seems in a 20-year period. We could not do what they did back then. With 700, imagine having 750,000 people on this work. They couldn't even have done this. Now, an additional problem, if they just use wood for the sleds to move these massive rocks, barges and logs, there is no forest in Egypt. The only trees are the date trees that cannot be cut down, for they supply food for the workers. So the wood would have had to be imported from Lebanon. Considering the needs and size of the average Lebanon trees, mathematicians tell us that 26 million trees would have been needed to fashion the necessary sledges and rafts. The problem is that neither Lebanon nor all the forests in the ancient world could have supplied that much wood in 20 years, not to mention a fleet that could carry all of it. So what are you beginning to see? You're beginning to see that the methods that we say, what happens is you may watch Discovery Channel or History Channel or whatever, and they have maybe a good-sized rock, maybe about so big, and what they do is they stick some trees under it, some logs. And they get some average men and they begin to pull it with ropes, and then, they probably have to move that, the last tree to the front and keep doing that back and forth. And they had to move all of these things. But you realize to say, okay, we have over 2 million rocks that need to be moved into place and then put up into place. We realize there's more to it than just this simple methods, this archaic methods that they're showing us. It doesn't seem that we could even do this today if we wanted to within the amount of time that they must have done this. Now, in Genesis chapter 1, so you're looking at all of these things and you begin to say, okay, Chad, so ancient man was very different than we are today. Something about him was very peculiar. You say, well, they use stone, and that's kind of archaic. We now use plastic. We now use things that what? We make houses, and the more they make houses, you'll notice they don't even generally make them even anymore. My friend's mother, she puts up wallpaper. And she puts up the wallpaper, and sometimes people say, no, look, you did it crooked. And she says, no. That's your house. Your house is made crooked. We slap together houses in no time, maybe weeks. They're throwing together houses that are made out of cheap wood. Just about everything is cheap, but the way they used to make things, they did it in a different form. They made it out of stone. Now, what did that mean? That meant that it would last a much longer period of time, all the way down to the time that we live in. Now, they made these things. They said that, they must have chosen, we want what we're making to last. Now, God has certain things in His Bible. Now, He made man. The Bible says here, and we see it on the screen in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, the Bible says, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl, or the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So what did God say? God said, listen, I want to make man in my own image. I want to make man like me. So God made man in the beginning. He made him perfect. Man was not inferior. When God made man, he was not some kind of Neanderthal. He wasn't some ignorant fool, but he was actually capable of very many things. He had an extremely intelligent mind. Now, God made him perfect. He gave him certain laws that governed his life. And those laws, these 10 commandments, were written in stone. Now, why would God write these laws in stone? He had other laws, many other laws. Moses wrote them. You can read about it in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 24 to 26. It says that Moses wrote a law, and he wrote it in a book, which was probably on scrolls or on parchment. But the reality is this. He wrote a book, and these laws, they were of passing form. But he had certain laws that would not change. He wrote them on stone. Now, our lives, if we follow these laws that God has given us, this is the only way to find true peace, true happiness. Coming to Jesus, knowing Him for who He is. And friends, we look back to the way He made man, and He made him perfect in the beginning. And if he had followed God's will, His principles that He had laid out right there in the Garden of Eden, what would have happened? He could have lived for eternity. But the reality is we think, oh, there's so many things in this world I want to try out, and we have somebody telling us, we have something in our mind saying that one thing that you shouldn't do, that's what you got to try, because that's what you're missing out on. But the reality is God's word is unchanging. It does not change. We look back on these ancient men, and they're gone. Their stones may not have passed away, but they were there for that time, and they're gone now. But if we follow God, if we give our lives to God, we personally can live with Him for eternity. He's given us principles to live by His word and in His law. And friends, I don't believe anybody should be forced to follow His law. God will never force you to. But friends, He reveals things to you. We see in these meetings, there's many things you're not going to learn in school. Many things you're not going to learn on television. They only show you one side of the story, and they act as if it would have been very easy to make these things. But it's very different than what you've been told. And the reality is God is trying to draw us closer to Him. He wants us to realize who He is. And friends, if you give your life to Him, this is the only way you can find peace, you can find true happiness. So the question is, are you willing to give your life to the Savior? Are you willing to give your life to Jesus? If that is your decision, I want you right in your heart right now to say, listen, I want to give my life to God. I want to know what it's like to have peace. I want to know what it's like to have a life of stability, something that is real, not some fake, emotion today and gone tomorrow, but something real, something lasting. If that's your decision, I want you to make that decision right here in your heart and ask the Lord to give you a stability, to come into your heart, to change your life. He wants to be with you. No matter what you've done, would you give your life to Him just now? Let's pray. Kind Heavenly Father, we thank You for being our God. We thank You for the opportunity to look at these ancient men that were so different from what popular scientists would show us. They only show us half the story. They may show us the rocks. They may show us the pyramids and say, it could have been done in this time, but we realize they don't tell us the whole story. There's much they're leaving out. And Lord, we thank You that with Your word, we don't have to act like things are real that are not real, nor the opposite. But with Your word, we can find true realities. We don't have to deny reality and say, well, this could have happened, when the reality is it couldn't have happened without extremely intelligent men. So we see that You made man in Your own image, and the reality is we have been degrading. From fighting Your laws, from turning away from You, we've been degraded, but we thank You that You want to lift us up. That Your Bible says that if any man is in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away, behold, all things are become new. And Lord, I pray that You will draw us near to You. I pray that You will give us the stability in the Christian walk that only can come through a true knowledge and relationship with You. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.